hello everyone here in the group, the IVF Journey. And I am back again today with a very, very special guest. He is Chris Lawson. Did I pronounce it good, your last name?
You did, absolutely.
Perfect. And he is from at IVF, that podcast. And most of the members are ladies. I have, I think, two or three male members. You might be asking why I have Chris. Well, because we are starting to promote more that breaking of this taboo of having a male voice. Remember something that there is also a lot of infertility issues in our community in heterosexual couples. And I'm going to talk today about heterosexual couples, not because I am going to put aside other couples. You know me, I am for anything, same sex, women, women, men, men. But today, heterosexual, because most of the times when we go over fertility treatments, we women are the ones that carry the hardest part, even if it's our partner, our spouse, the one that has the factor, male factor. So I am very proud, happy, and excited to have Chris today with us because he is actually leading, I will say, this male infertility community. And this is something that we needed for a while. When I see men coming in my group, like supporting their wife because she feels different, because she is scared or embarrassed, like I was in my time, it's beautiful to see that because that's partnership, that's love, that's a very important part in a relationship, especially if we are going through a fertility treatment, because that also can cause strains in our relationship. So welcome, Chris, to the
Thank you.
IVF journey.
It's
And
amazing
I'm
to be here.
gonna let you introduce yourself, talk about how you decide to become this leader in our world, in the male world. I have seen little accounts here and there, but you are really kind of pushing that and making a force. So please tell us about you, a little bit about your story, and then we jump into questions and talk with the people. If you want to chat, you know that you can post your questions and we can answer them. Welcome, Chris, again.
Thank you, Monica. Well, I mean, it's amazing to be here, and I still feel quite humbled, really, because I know that I've got a success story sort of out of the back of it, and I know there's a lot of people still on their own personal journeys. But that's part of the reason why I did it. My wife and I, we were trying for about sort of 6 years, and she was a girlfriend at the time when we started, and we had pretty much 18 embryos before we were successful over that time period. We had hundreds and hundreds of different types of tests and procedures just to work out what was going on. We almost gave up a lot of times, but we kept the faith and we kept going. And we were absolutely blessed with our daughter Rosie being born in January 2020, and she literally was the last embryo, the last chance that we had, and that's it's an amazing moment. But I think for me, what was really interesting as I went through that process was how I learned about myself, and I learned about our relationship, and I learned what we needed to do together. And the interesting thing is that from a male perspective, you're pretty much told from a very early age about how not to get a girl pregnant, and it's not focused on around fertility issues that you may well face. It's all very much about you have to be extremely careful because literally you've just got to look at a girl and she's going to get pregnant, and that's what you're taught. And then, so when we were sort of coming round, we looked at what we wanted to do, and we'd left it quite late for various different reasons. I'd been married before, and Trish hadn't, but we neither of us had children. And I just assumed that, yes, I knew about a female body clock, and I understood about the fact that Trish was approaching 40 and that might be made more difficult. But from a male perspective, I think I was very, very naive, and didn't really understand that, one, over 50% of fertility issues are at least connected with males, if not solely being from a male perspective. And the second thing is that men also have their own ticking clock. Now, it might not be ticking nearly as fast as the female one, but it is still ticking. And it was an interesting moment when we went from that first consultation, and I'm sort of sat back in the chair, and then suddenly the spotlight turns on me, and it's like, right, well, we need to take your history, and we need to understand what's going on, and we need to examine and to see what any issues were. And I, to be fair, my dad was born when my granddad was 76, and my granddad had his last kid at 80. So I just assumed it was in the genes. I'd left it late, but what issue would that make? Now, at that stage, as many of you will find, I'm sure, it's a process of hope and positivity and sort of anticipation as well as some anxiety. Mm-hmm. And we went through and we had a whole load of tests, and it actually turned out that my sperm wasn't in great shape. Literally, it was all about the motility, and it was very much about the fact that actually the volume was okay, but the shape of the sperm was going to cause the problem. And you're confronted with that information as a guy. I think it came out as sort of 2%. And the first thing is you think, what, I've only got 2% normal shaped sperm. And that's a shocking moment until you realize that the average is actually sort of 4%. And you sort of think, well, okay, it's not brilliant, but it's not terrible. Yes. But even at that point, there was still a moment when I was thinking, it starts to play with your male identity. It starts to play with what you perceive as being sort of a virile sort of male. As it was, when we went to do the treatment, we were sort of told that ICSI would probably solve that situation for us, because they'd be able to find my best performing sort of sperm, and we embarked on a journey, still with quite a lot of confidence. But as many of you will also experience, as one round turns into 2 rounds, and you gear yourself up, you look for hope, you think, right, well, we're taking all the nutritional advice, we're being healthy, we're doing this one's going to be around. And then you face a situation where it isn't. I found that how I was dealing with it was very different to how my wife Trish was dealing with it. And I almost saw my role as being team coach. I saw the role, because I was almost helpless on the physical side, I saw that role as, right, I've got to motivate Trish. I've got to say, don't worry, next time round, we're going to be up there and it's going to work. And I was so busy dealing with that as a task, as a job to do, that I didn't really think about how I was feeling in this process, and the anxiety that it was causing me. And as 1 year turns into 2 years, and 2 years turns into 3, and you start seeing your bank balance start decreasing, and you have to start making decisions about not buying cars, or not buying holidays, or when to get married and when not to get married. We had this mini hope that we would have children before we actually got married, and they could be there at a wedding. And after 2 or 3 years of putting off the marriage, we sort of thought, do you know what, we've just got to do that now. So I was in this situation where I wasn't really thinking about my emotions, and I was struggling to work out what was my role. And we sat down and we actually sort of talked about it. And I'm so glad we did, because it allowed me to express the fact that although I wasn't carrying the physical burden, I was carrying the mental burden as equally as Trish was. And to try and support her, I tried to go along to every single appointment, even though I felt like a complete spare part. So I sat in those waiting rooms as she went in for the ultrascans or the blood tests. But I tried to come to as many as I could. But I found that I was made one man around a sort of a sea of females in those waiting rooms, and occasionally there was another male. And it's, you know, it's nice with International Women's Day. It's nice for the boot to be on the other foot occasionally. It felt like a very female orientated world, and I was the minority. And what I found though was when there was another guy, he'd be on his phone, I'd be on my phone, and there'd be no conversation whatsoever. And during this process, I was feeling lonelier and lonelier and lonelier, because my mates are great. You know, they help me, and if I wanted to talk about it, they would talk about it. But at the same time, I was chatting to friends of mine who had 18-year-old kids, and or going, "Oh, Chris, you don't know how easy you've got it. I'm having sleepless nights, and you and Trish can go off traveling." And I'm thinking, I'd give my left arm to be able to have children at this stage. So I found myself moving more and more insular, and I thought, if I come out the other side of this, and if we're successful, I want to try and break down some of those taboos, break down the fact that there's stigma against this, and actually understand why this happens. So understand more about male factor infertility, and understand that actually by talking about this and raising up the conversation, we can help improve the relationships between the couples so that they understand and can talk a bit more to each other. So that's why I set up IVF Dad. So the IVF Dad podcast is 13 episodes, and it tries to take each bit of that, the consultation, that first sperm test you have to go to, what's it like on embryo transfer day, dealing with miscarriages, which I know an awful lot of us have had to deal with, but looking at that from a male perspective, thinking about what's the alternative when you're left there and the doctor's sitting you down and thinking, to be honest, we don't think that this is going to happen with your egg and your sperm. So thinking about donor conception or adoption, through to the fact that the last throw of a dice, we had one frozen embryo in the freezer from before we were getting married, and we were just exhausted. So we said, you know what, we'll just put it there and we'll get married and then we'll try again. And it was almost like we almost had forgotten it in the way, because it wasn't a very good quality one. So after we were married, we did one more round of fresh IVF, and Trish got probably about 11 eggs, and she's, bearing in mind she's like 43, 44 at this point, was really good going. And we had 4 or 5 embryos, and we sent them all off for genetic testing, and all of them came back negative. And at that moment, we're just sat there thinking, not what do we do next, but what's going to happen in the rest of our life. And it was a tough moment. And so we went to see the consultant, and the consultant said, look, I think we need to give up on the fresh cycles. But let's remember, you've got one frozen one in the freezer. So let's put it back, because although it's not good quality, you never know what happens. And we put that back, and that was the one. And that's Rosie. So
how old is she now?
She's about 14 months old. So
let me ask you, so your wife was a mom at what age, if you don't mind?
She was a mom at 44.
Wow, incredible. And I tell you why. I was a mom almost at 42 of my last cycle. I have a wonderful friend, also fertility coach in Australia, Elizabeth. She was a mom also, I think, at 45. Another, she's also in UK. I don't know if you know her, Shayla Lamb. She's the author of this series of books. She's also, I think it was 44. It's so many examples. And your story is so touching, Chris, because I tell you something, it's beautiful. It's something very beautiful to see. And I'm going to remark on that, especially when this world today is an upside down world, all what is happening. I am not I don't like things on extreme. I like things balanced. For me, in a relationship, men, women, or women, or men, it doesn't matter how kind of relationship it is, there is always the stronger side, the one that has kind of that male testosterone power, and then the female. Doesn't matter if it's same sex. So for me, balance is very important. For me as a wife, it's important to keep my home, cook for my husband, fix his clothes, and at the same time have my feminine power. I don't go extreme to the feminism and say, oh, men is, no, for me, all is equal. So to see you as these men coming, showing this vulnerable part of you that most men don't show, whatever reason, taboo, this, that, or the world itself, all these feminist movements, extreme things that happen, is beautiful because it shows so much that you also guys go through changes, through emotional roller coaster. The fact that you don't have injections, all of that, and the thing is that you guys take it so strong and put aside your own feelings to come and give us that power. Because in the back of your mind, I think what happened is that you think that, okay, if I show my emotions, I'm going to drag her down more. And sometimes we need to see the emotions to kind of feel, oh my gosh, he understands me. He know what I'm going through. I tell you that from my side. When we had our stillbirth, I was crying, devastated. And my husband was that kind of strong, he focused on work. He was like, it's going to be okay. We're going to have another baby. And I was like, are you kidding me? This guy is not feeling it. So I blame him. I say he's insensitive. And it was not true. He was even much more broken than I was. But he didn't know how to deal with that. He was running away because he didn't want to feel that pain. And seeing this from you is an example. It's like a wake-up call to every other man in a same-sex relationship of men or heterosexual to see, you have a heart, guys, and you can cry, and it's okay to feel, right?
Absolutely. I remember when Trish had the miscarriage, and I went back to work, and the irony is that I'd made sure that I was around for every single appointment, and yet at that point when Trish needed me most, I was back to work. And I'm not proud of it, but I think it taught me a lot. Now, part of the reason why I went back, and of course, we talked about it. I'm saying, look, do you want me to stay or do you want me to go back to work? And she go, no, you go back to work. But she didn't really want that. And we all know that, don't we? We have to. That's just normal life, isn't it? That's nothing to do with fertility treatment. But part of the reason why I wanted to go back was I didn't want anyone at work to ask me about it. I was so in pain that I wanted to go back so that they didn't miss me and say, is everything okay?
Yes.
And it's a weird sort of logic there that in a way I detached myself and wasn't there at that moment when she needed me most.
That is the word, detached.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we talked about it, and she understands it. But when we did, and she saw that emotion, and she saw and understood how painful it was for me, it helped her. You don't have to always be the strong one. I think it's an important point.
And you mentioned something. You said, yes, I went back to work and I felt bad about it. But if we don't fall into mistakes in general, in life, in our journey, in our day by day, we don't learn. And all of that struggle, all of that moments that you felt maybe that you were not there for her is what took you where you are. You are because you thought about it. You say, oh, well, that is not me. I have the right to feel. And it's beautiful to feel our husband, our other half vulnerable, because when these kind of things happen, it can cause big strains in our relationship, in our marriage. And if we have another child, it's also affecting them. We almost got divorced with my husband, so I can relay of the feelings that you could feel. And don't get me wrong, he's still that strong, guy. And I think life eventually bring lessons to them too. But I wanted also to ask you something now that this come up. So your podcast is one season of 13 chapters, and in
That's
that
right.
podcast, each chapter is you going through your journey, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And then what I do is I bring in some of the people we met along the way. So it's the consultant that saw us throughout the whole journey, or the embryologist that was there for embryo transfer days, or the sonographer, or the nurse, or the counsellor. And why the reason why I did that was that it can also be, as we all know, a really intimidating place. You go into these bright light, clinical, and you almost feel like humbled to be there, or a bit intimidated to be there. And I wanted to demonstrate that these experts, as well as being experts, were human too. And over
Yes.
6 years we got to know some of them, and we knew that they cared. We knew that consultant, Alison Taylor, on that last one, when we sat down in that consultation and agreed that this was the last one we were going to put back, she said, well, if it's the last one, I want to make sure I'm doing it. So she changed her diary around so she could do it.
Wow.
And so therefore each podcast talks to the experts as well as me. But I wanted to make sure it gave a male perspective. And it's a male perspective, not just on my feelings, but a male perspective on what it was like practically for Trish as well. Because I think one of the things I didn't realize, in a way, I think it's been as helpful to couples as it has just been to men going through it.
Yes.
Interestingly, a lot of couples are listening to it together and comparing notes, even down to working out how they did it. So I used to inject Trish, for instance, and
My husband
and
did that to me. Yes.
yeah, and it's really interesting. I had a comment from someone who said, "Do you know what? We never ever thought about asking that." So we had a conversation about whether I would let him do it. I said the answer was still no. I'm definitely not going to let him do it. But it opened it up to couples as well. And the
Absolutely.
other thing that I was really proud of was that so men were taking it to their partners and saying, you should have a listen to this because this is how I feel. And although they might not be able to articulate it, they were able to pass the podcast over and say, this is it. But yeah, series one. So the last one was released this week, so called Everything Rosy. So it's that tough period where you get into pregnancy and you just haven't got 9 months to worry about. You've got all of the period before, all of that anxiety. And then my plan is to come back and do another series where I explore some of the areas in a bit more detail. I think
Yes.
there's a lot to be done around younger men in their 20s, and understanding about infertility and putting stuff right even before they think about going into a sort of a relationship or getting someone pregnant. There's a lot of issues around hormones or testosterone or
Totally.
steroids and the likes. I want to sort of raise awareness in that area and explore some of the areas that are really resonated a bit further. Look at the alternatives in a bit more detail. Look at miscarriage and those feelings that are associated with it. Some of the specific male factor infertility stuff, such as should you do DNA fragmentation tests,
Yes.
and some of the specific challenges, and what to do if when you get a sperm test you find that not only may you have an issue in terms of like so blockages or the shape of a sperm. What happens if you don't have any? If it's 1% of
Yes.
guys do not have any sperm, and that
Yes.
must be a tough moment when you get given that news. So there's lots more to cover, Monica. That's for certain.
Definitely. And you know what? You mentioned something, paying attention to the details. Today, not only in women or male and female fertility issues, I have seen a lot of young people, mid 20s, early 30s, both male and females having a lot of issues, more than women and men in the late
Mm,
30s, early and late 40s. And I think
mm,
it has to do a lot with, what we put in our body, food, household products, and all what you mentioned, lifestyle, because, it's kind of an automated thought that, oh, I'm young, so my cells are regenerating all the time, and it's not like that. So
absolutely.
creating that kind of awareness, and you also reaching to younger people that are anyhow planning to be parents one day, it's absolutely beautiful. Now, Chris, this interview is, we're gonna have another one because I know that I'm gonna get a lot of messages. I'm gonna have Chris in my Instagram account for everyone that doesn't, have a Facebook. If you have friends, I'm gonna have Chris again, and we're gonna go over that because I am now in this kind of mission, adding this to my field, and it's promoting male perspective. So, Chris, let know our audience. First of all, he is a member here, so please feel free to ask in the comments if you have any question or something, even after the video is over, and tag Chris. He will come and answer, or I'll reach out to him. um, Let us know, please, your website, or where they can find you in Instagram. That they can reach out to you. Especially, I know that some women will want, definitely, and they will come and say, I want my husband to see this. And few of our male members in the group, I'm sure they're gonna reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So I've got a website which is www.ivfdad.com. So all of the podcasts are on there and some blogs as well. And then on Instagram, I'm under IVF Dad Podcast. And that's all in one word, obviously. So and look, anything I can do to help, I'm really just, my sole aim for this is just to help share the message, because men don't like talking about fertility much, and I really want to share the message that it really only does take one, and you've got to keep that faith. You really
It's
have to
true.
keep the faith. And I know Monica does an incredible job with this community, and amongst her
Thank you.
many other communities as well, and an absolute inspiration. So if I can emulate that in any way or help in any way, then I would love to.
I tell you, I see you, and it inspires me more because we need that. We need that. You see, there's a lot of fertility advocates, but as you say, it's more women, and we need to bring our other partners. For example, I love to share your post, your perspective. We need it. I thought I also talked with Emir Iran. He's in
Mm-hmm.
Israeli. He created this beautiful platform for same-sex couples, for men, and women. And we need that male perspective, no matter what your preferences are. But if you want to create that goal of parenthood, so I'm sure, Chris, that you're gonna be this, you are already this leader. If you guys want, also please go to my website. I post a blog every Monday, and this past Monday it was specifically Chris' story, because I have from everybody, women, the couple here, but not this male voice. So please go read the full story there. And again, if you guys have any questions for that specific thing, and you want to open up, because I know, like you said, they can feel embarrassed, they can feel that is kind of maybe that ego machoistic thing that some men have. There is nothing wrong. We vulnerability is a strength. That's what it is for me, in my opinion. So reach out to Chris. I will make sure to put below the comments in our live again. His Facebook, you have a Facebook, I can put it too, but they are here as a member. He's here. I'm going to put his website and his Instagram. And I'm sure, Chris, that they can reach out to you, tag you, and you will answer them, right?
100%. Yeah. Anything I can do, either, whoever it is, whatever I can do, I will try my best.
Yes, he also has a LinkedIn, so if you can also put it in the comments
Yeah.
below, because some people have, also LinkedIn is more private, but there is still a big community there. Chris, I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite, Monica. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And like I say, don't be a stranger. And remember, it only takes one.
Exactly, that is true. And sometimes it's not even the best one, and it's the one that is the strongest one.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I will see you in our next live. Remember, I will have Chris again in my Instagram, so I will announce it and post it here. Chris, again, it was an honor. Always an honor to have you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.